Japanese pilots were shocked by America's Corsair fighters in the Pacific. March 15, 1943. Rabaul, New Guinea. Commander Takeshi Nakamura leaned over the reconnaissance photographs scattered across the planning table, his weathered hands pressing against the edges of the grainy images. His uniform, immaculate despite the tropical heat, bore the ribbons of a dozen victorious engagements. "Look at this," Nakamura said, tapping a blurred silhouette with obvious disdain. "The Americans bring us another airplane with a bent wing. Their engineers cannot even build a straight fighter." Lieutenant Hiroshi Yamamoto, his second-in-command, nodded with practiced agreement. "They produce quantity over quality, Commander. Their pilots fly buses while we fly samurai swords." Captain Kenji Tanaka, the squadron's intelligence officer, studied the photographs with narrowed eyes, his expression troubled. "Commander, our intelligence suggests this aircraft has unusual performance characteristics. The engine displacement exceeds anything we've encountered." But Nakamura waved him off with a sharp gesture. "Tanaka-san, we have defeated their Wildcats at a ratio of 7-1. At Coral Sea, we destroyed 43 American aircraft for every 9 of ours lost. Over Guadalcanal, our Zero pilots achieved a kill ratio of 5-1 in the first month alone." He counted on his fingers. "At the Battle of the Java Sea, we dominated their air cover completely. At Darwin, we destroyed more aircraft on the ground than they shot down in 3 months of combat." The mathematics were undeniable. Japanese pilots flew superior aircraft with superior training against an enemy that relied on industrial brute force over warrior spirit. What Nakamura didn't know, what none of them could have known as they studied those photographs in that sweltering command post, was that the bent-wing fighter would destroy Japanese air superiority within 18 months. The numbers would become catastrophic. Kill ratios of 11-1. Production numbers exceeding 2,100 aircraft monthly. Losses approaching 90% of veteran pilots. The dismissive laughter in that Rabaul command post would become history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in 7,000 aircraft destroyed and 12,000 pilots killed. The mathematics had seemed so certain. At Midway, Japanese naval aviation had demonstrated tactical superiority despite strategic defeat. Their pilots averaged 800 flight hours before combat deployment. American pilots entered combat with less than 300 hours. The Mitsubishi Zero outperformed the Grumman Wildcat in climb rate, turn radius, and sustained combat maneuverability. Japanese pilots had been fighting since 1937 in China. American pilots had been at war for 16 months. At Pearl Harbor, Japanese aircraft had destroyed 188 American planes on the ground and damaged 159 more. At Clark Field in the Philippines, they annihilated half of MacArthur's Air Force in a single afternoon. Over the Indian Ocean, they had sunk the British carrier Hermes and decimated RAF squadrons with contemptuous ease. The kill ratios told an unambiguous story. Japanese aviation dominated the Pacific. Commander Nakamura's own combat record reflected this superiority. 17 confirmed kills, 3 probables. He had flown 87 combat missions without suffering a single hit to his aircraft. His squadron had destroyed 63 American aircraft in 6 months while losing 9 of their own. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. The Zero fighter represented the apex of aeronautical engineering for combat. Empty weight, 3,570 pounds. Maximum speed, 331 miles per hour at 16,000 feet. Rate of climb, 4,500 feet per minute. Combat radius, 1,150 nautical miles. 2 20mm cannons, 2 7.7 machine guns. Turn time at 200 knots, 16 seconds. American fighters required 22 to 24 seconds for the same maneuver. Captain Tanaka examined intelligence reports with growing concern. American factories were expanding production. New aircraft designs appeared in reconnaissance photographs with disturbing frequency. "Commander," he said carefully, "our sources indicate the Americans are implementing assembly line techniques for military production. Their automotive industry is converting to—" "They build cars, Tanaka-san," Nakamura interrupted. "We build warriors. Henry Ford's factories cannot create the spirit that wins battles." But Tanaka persisted, his voice measured. "The production figures suggest they may achieve numerical superiority by numbers without quality are simply larger targets," Nakamura said flatly. "Their pilots fly with the skill of students. We fly with the precision of masters. When this new bent-wing aircraft arrives, we will destroy it as we have destroyed all their others." Lieutenant Yamamoto had witnessed this superiority firsthand. 2 weeks earlier, he had led a flight of 4 Zeros against 6 Wildcats over New Georgia. The engagement lasted 7 minutes, 5 Wildcats destroyed, 1 damaged and forced to ditch, 0 losses. Yamamoto had personally accounted for 2 kills, both achieved in less than 30 seconds each. The American aircraft had attempted to turn with him, a fatal mistake against a Zero. Their pilots know nothing of vertical combat, he reported. They fly like they're still in training. Recent engagements confirmed the pattern. Over Bougainville, 8 Zeros engaged 12 American fighters. Result, 7 American aircraft destroyed, 2 Zeros damaged but recovered. Over Munda, 6 Zeros intercepted a formation of bombers with fighter escort. 4 bombers destroyed, 3 fighters destroyed, 1 Zero lost to anti-aircraft fire. The statistics painted a clear picture. American training remained inferior, their aircraft remained inferior, their tactics remained predictable. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. Stratford, Connecticut, April 1943. Igor Sikorsky walked through the Chance Vought factory, his eyes tracking the assembly line that stretched the length of 3 football fields. The single facility produced 14 Corsair fighters daily. Every 103 minutes, another complete aircraft rolled toward the flight line. In January 1942, America produced just 137 Corsair fighters monthly. By October 1942, production reached 411 monthly across all facilities. By April 1943, this single facility was producing 420 monthly. This single facility was producing more Corsairs than the entire Japanese aviation industry produced Zeros, Oscars, Franks, and Tojos combined. Martha Jenkins, previously a seamstress at a Hartford textile mill, now operated a hydraulic riveting station that produced 217 wing panel assemblies every 8-hour shift. Her station maintained precision tolerances of 0.003 of an inch across 14,000 individual rivets. She worked with 4 other women in a coordinated sequence that attached 6 completed wing panels per hour. Martha produced more wing assemblies in 1 shift than the entire Nakajima factory complex in Musashino produced in a week. Her station alone accounted for enough wing panels to build 42 complete aircraft monthly. Japanese production of equivalent components across all factories totaled approximately 50 monthly. Robert Washington from Birmingham, Alabama, operated a Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine testing station that processed 9 engines every shift. His diagnostic equipment checked 47 different performance parameters, measuring fuel consumption, oil pressure, cylinder head temperature, manifold pressure, and propeller shaft torque across 17 different power settings. Each engine produced 2,000 horsepower, more than double the output of the Saki engine in the Zero. His single station's daily output exceeded the entire Nakajima Musashi engine plant's capacity. The Musashi plant produced approximately 23 engines daily. Washington's station processed 9, and 37 identical stations operated in parallel across 3 shifts. Harold Brooks, $1-a-year man from General Motors, managed the propeller production line. His team produced 320 propellers weekly using forging techniques adapted from automotive crankshaft manufacturing. Each propeller blade required 13,700 individual machine operations. The process that had taken skilled craftsmen 4 weeks now required 17 hours. Americans discarded more aluminum shavings from propeller production daily than Japan allocated to aircraft construction monthly. The mathematical comparison was stark. American propeller scrap from a single 8-hour shift represented 2,800 pounds of aluminum. Japanese total monthly aluminum allocation for aircraft construction, 91,000 pounds across the entire nation. Americans discarded defective rivets at a rate of 42,000 daily. Japan allocated 9,000 rivets monthly to each frontline airbase for all maintenance and repair operations. The waste from a single inspection station exceeded the entire Imperial Japanese Navy's monthly rivet allocation for field repairs across all bases in the South Pacific. Workers threw away aluminum stock, deemed slightly scratched material that would have been carefully filed, polished, and utilized in Japanese factories. A single day's discarded aluminum at the Stratford facility, 4,100 pounds. Japanese monthly aluminum scrap recovery and recycling program for the entire aviation industry, 3,900 pounds. The cafeteria discarded more beef daily than Rabaul Air Base received monthly. Daily cafeteria waste of beef, 970 pounds. Monthly beef ration for Rabaul's 2,300 personnel, 640 pounds. The Americans fed their factory workers better than Japan fed its combat pilots. Assembly workers threw away cutting oil that Japanese machinists filtered and reused until it turned black and viscous. Americans used each batch once and discarded it. Daily cutting oil waste at Stratford, 470 gallons. Monthly cutting oil allocation for Nakajima's Musashino plant, 390 gallons. The sheer volume of production created waste as a byproduct. Defective parts occurred at a rate of 2.3%, considered acceptable in mass production. But that 2.3% represented 167 aircraft worth of components monthly. The discarded components from this single facility's quality control process could have built Japan's entire fighter production for March 1943. Captain Tanaka compiled these production reports with mounting alarm. His intelligence network provided fragmentary but consistent data. American factories operated on scales that defied Japanese industrial capacity. He presented his findings to Commander Nakamura with careful precision. "Sir, our estimates suggest the Americans will produce 2,100 fighters monthly by summer. Our production capacity is 450 monthly across all types." Nakamura studied the report briefly. "Quantity, Tanaka-san, not quality. They produce many inferior aircraft. We produce fewer superior aircraft." "With respect, Commander," Tanaka said carefully, "quantity has its own quality. If they produce 5 aircraft for every one of ours, even at inferior performance, the mathematics become irrelevant when pilot skill and aircraft capability dominate," Nakamura insisted. "One skilled pilot in a Zero defeats 5 mediocre pilots in inferior aircraft. We have proven this repeatedly." But Tanaka's reports continued to document the escalation. American production in April, 1,800 fighters. In May, projected 2,100 fighters. "Commander, at these rates, they will achieve a 5-to-1 numerical advantage by August." Nakamura dismissed the concern with a wave. "Then we will achieve 6-to-1 kill ratios. Tanaka-san, you worry about numbers like an accountant. Think like a warrior. Spirit defeats steel." May 13, 1943, over the Solomon Islands, 8:47 hours. Lieutenant Yamamoto was conducting a routine combat air patrol when his wingman's radio crackled with alarm. "Unidentified aircraft, bearing 270, Angels 15. Yamamoto squinted against the morning sun. The silhouette appeared wrong, inverted gull wings, massive nose cowling, larger than any American fighter he had encountered. At 0847:22, he initiated an attack run, diving from 18,000 feet with the sun behind him. At 0849:45, he opened fire at 400 yards. The American aircraft rolled inverted and accelerated away. Yamamoto's Zero topped out at 331 miles per hour. The Corsair reached 417 miles per hour in level flight and continued accelerating. Elapsed time from engagement to complete disengagement, 143 seconds. Yamamoto never achieved firing position again. At 085210, 3 more Corsairs engaged from above. Yamamoto's wingman, Ensign Nakano, attempted a climbing turn, the Zero's signature evasion maneuver. The Corsair followed him through the turn, firing a burst of 6.50 caliber machine guns. At 085237, Nakano's aircraft exploded. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 27 seconds. Kill time, 27 seconds. Yamamoto tried to turn into the nearest Corsair. The American pilot refused to turn fight, instead executing a high-speed yo-yo that kept him outside Yamamoto's firing envelope while maintaining offensive position. At 0853:41, Yamamoto took hits along his left wing. At 0854:03, his engine temperature spiked and he smelled smoke. At 0854:29, he dove for cloud cover, nursing his damaged Zero toward Rabaul. 2 more Zeros from his flight failed to return. At 0853:19, Warrant Officer Sato was shot down. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 44 seconds. Kill time, 44 seconds. At 0856:02, Lieutenant Takahashi was destroyed while attempting to assist Sato. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 106 seconds. Kill time, 106 seconds. Total engagement duration, 8 minutes, 47 seconds. Enemy losses, 3 Zeros destroyed, 1 severely damaged. American losses, 0. Kill ratio, 3-0. The ammunition expended in this 8-minute engagement exceeded Rabaul's monthly allocation for combat operations across 12 squadrons. Yamamoto's combat report read like a nightmare. Aircraft performance characteristics exceed all known American types, speed approximately 400 miles per hour, rate of climb superior to 0, firepower devastating. 6 heavy machine guns create wall of fire. Our 20mm cannons require multiple hits. Their .50 caliber rounds destroy aircraft with single burst. Armor protection prevents our 7.7 guns from achieving kills. Pilot refused turning engagement, maintained energy advantage. Tactics indicate superior training. Commander Nakamura read the report 3 times. You engaged how many aircraft? 4, sir. The first escaped before I could close. 3 more engaged from superior position. And you shot down none? Sir, I could not achieve firing position. When I attempted to turn, they maintained speed and altitude advantage. When I dove, they followed and caught me. When I climbed, they climbed faster. Nakamura's jaw tightened. Yamamoto-san, you are one of our most experienced pilots. You have 17 confirmed kills. You are telling me you could not defeat American pilots. Sir, the aircraft negated our advantages. The Zero turns better, but they would not turn. We climb better at low speed, but they climb better at high speed. Their speed advantage allowed them to dictate engagement terms. Captain Tanaka entered with additional reports. Commander, we have confirmation from 3 other engagements today. 6 Zeros lost. 2 Bet is destroyed. 0 American losses confirmed. The aircraft appears to be the bent-wing fighter from reconnaissance photographs. Pilots report designation Corsair. Intelligence dismissed the reports as exaggeration born from shock. Nakamura convened a meeting with his senior pilots. Gentlemen, we face a new American fighter with apparently superior performance. However, performance alone does not win battles. Discipline wins battles. Tactics win battles. Spirit wins battles. We will adapt our tactics to neutralize their speed advantage. Lieutenant Matsumo, a veteran of Pearl Harbor, proposed hit-and-run tactics. If they will not turn, we must use altitude advantage. Dive attacks, maximum speed, break off and climb. Agreed, Nakamura said. We will not pursue, we will not allow them to dictate engagement terms. We will fight at times and places of our choosing. But Captain Tanaka presented data that complicated the tactical response. Commander, our intelligence indicates the Americans are producing this aircraft in substantial numbers. Current estimates suggest over 400 monthly. By June, possibly 500 monthly. They appear to be deploying them to multiple squadrons simultaneously. How many squadrons? Nakamura asked. At least 7, possibly 12. Each squadron operates 18 aircraft. If production continues, they could field 1,000 of these fighters by September. And our production? We are producing approximately 150 Zeros monthly, Commander, plus 200 other fighters of various types. The mathematics began to reveal an uncomfortable reality. Even with superior tactics, even with superior pilot skill, a 3-to-1 numerical disadvantage posed strategic problems. If the Americans maintained even a 2-to-1 kill ratio in their favor, far better than their historical performance, attrition would still favor them. They could lose 2 aircraft for every one of theirs and still achieve numerical superiority through production. Nakamura ordered modified tactics, dive and zoom attacks, no turning engagements, strict adherence to energy management. We will use the Zero's strengths, rate of climb, maneuverability at low speed range. We will avoid their strengths, speed, firepower, high-altitude performance. They tried the new tactics on May 18th. 8 Zeros engaged 6 Corsairs over Rendova. The Zeros attacked from 22,000 feet, diving to firing position at maximum speed. They achieved surprise, opening fire at 300 yards. 1 Corsair took hits and streamed smoke, but the remaining Corsairs did not flee. They split into 2 ship elements and pursued the climbing Zeros. The Zeros, having expended energy in the dive, climbed at reduced speed. The Corsairs, maintaining higher speed, caught them during the climb. At 1014:27, Ensign Watanabe was destroyed. Elapsed time from initial engagement to destruction, 94 seconds. Kill time, 94 seconds. At 1015:03, Warrant Officer Kimura was shot down. Kill time, 36 seconds. At 1016:17, Lieutenant Honda was destroyed attempting to cover Kimura's escape. Kill time, 74 seconds. The damaged Corsair recovered to its base. Enemy losses, 3 Zeros destroyed, 2 damaged. American losses, 1 aircraft damaged, pilot recovered. Kill ratio, 3-0 effective losses. The ammunition expended in this 10-minute engagement exceeded Bougainville's monthly allocation for all defensive operations. They attempted boom and zoom tactics on May 22nd. 6 Zeros made multiple diving passes on 4 Corsairs, refusing to turn or pursue. The Corsairs formed a defensive wheel, each aircraft covering another's tail. The Zeros made 7 attack passes without achieving a kill. The Corsairs waited until the Zeros exhausted their ammunition and fuel, then pursued them during their withdrawal. 2 Zeros were shot down during the return to base. Elapsed time from final Corsair engagement to first Zero destruction, 41 seconds. Kill time, 41 seconds. Second Zero destruction, 63 seconds after the first. Kill time, 63 seconds. They tried high-altitude interception on May 26. Zeros climbed to 28,000 feet to intercept a bomber raid. The Corsair escorts climbed faster, arrived first, and engaged from above. 4 Zeros destroyed. 0 Corsairs destroyed. Average kill time, 52 seconds. They attempted numerical superiority on May 29th. 14 Zeros engaged 8 Corsairs. The Corsairs used vertical tactics, refusing to turn, maintaining speed and altitude advantage. 6 Zeros destroyed. 1 Corsair damaged. Kill ratio, 6-0 effective losses. The engagement lasted 14 minutes. The ammunition expended exceeded Rabaul's monthly allocation for gunnery training across all squadrons. Captain Tanaka compiled the statistics with clinical precision. Commander, in the 18 days since first contact with Corsairs, we have lost 47 aircraft in direct engagements. We have destroyed 3 Corsairs confirmed, possibly 2 more as probables. The kill ratio is approximately 15-1 in their favor. Nakamura stared at the numbers. 15-1? Yes, sir. Our previous kill ratio against American fighters was 5-1 in our favor. Against the Corsair, we are suffering losses at a rate 3 times worse than our previous victories. The mathematics are unambiguous. Pilot quality, sir, these are the same pilots who achieved those 5-1 ratios. Yamamoto, Matsumoto, Takahashi are best pilots. They are being shot down by American pilots who, according to our previous assessments, were inferior. Either our assessments were wrong, or the aircraft has negated the pilot quality advantage. At Stratford, Connecticut, the production line accelerated. Americans discarded hydraulic fluid that Japanese mechanics filtered and reused until it degraded into useless sludge. Daily hydraulic fluid waste, 370 gallons. Monthly hydraulic fluid allocation for all Japanese naval air bases in the South Pacific, 240 gallons. Workers threw away electrical wiring with minor insulation damage, wiring that Japanese technicians would have carefully repaired and reused. Daily copper wire waste, 490 pounds. Monthly copper allocation for all Japanese aircraft electrical repairs, 320 pounds. The cafeteria served fresh vegetables, daily vegetables that would have been luxury rations at any Japanese air base. Daily vegetable waste from uneaten portions, 630 pounds. Monthly fresh vegetable ration for Rabaul, 400 pounds for all personnel. The single facility's daily aluminum scrap exceeded Japan's monthly aluminum imports. Daily scrap, 6,200 pounds. Monthly aluminum imports to Japan, 4,900 pounds. The mathematics were becoming clear. America's waste exceeded Japan's careful conservation. This single facility's discarded materials represented more resources than entire Japanese supply chains could deliver. Captain Tanaka received updated production intelligence. Commander, the Americans now operate 15 Corsair squadrons in the Pacific. That represents approximately 270 aircraft in theater. Our intelligence suggests they are producing 540 monthly. By August, they will field over 600. And our response? We have requested increased Zero production. The Mitsubishi plant at Nagoya can increase production to 190 monthly. But, Commander, that is still a 3-1 disadvantage in this single type. When we include all American fighter production, I understand, Tanaka-san, Nakamura said quietly. Show me the full numbers. Tanaka laid out the intelligence summary. American fighter production in May, 2,100 aircraft. Japanese fighter production in May, 420 aircraft. That ratio is 5-1. A single American factory, the Stratford plant, produces more fighters monthly than our entire industry. How is this possible? Assembly line techniques, Commander. Henry Ford's factories, as you said, but applied to warfare. They have automated what we craft by hand. They have standardized what we customize. They produce with machines what we produce with artisans. And, sir, it works. The quality is adequate. The quantity is overwhelming. Americans discarded defective ammunition at rates that exceeded Japanese combat expenditure. Daily ammunition waste from quality control testing, 43,000 rounds of .50 caliber. Monthly ammunition allocation for combat operations at Rabaul, 38,000 rounds across all calibers. This single facility's testing program expended more ammunition than an entire airbase used in combat. The waste from primer production, tiny components weighing less than a gram, exceeded Japanese primer production for all small arms. Daily primer waste, 24,000 units. Monthly Japanese primer production for aircraft ammunition, 19,000 units. Americans threw away more explosives in manufacturing waste than Japan produced for combat use. Daily explosives waste from munitions production testing, 1,100 pounds. Monthly explosives allocation for all Japanese aircraft ordnance in the South Pacific, 900 pounds. June 7, 1943. Battle of New Georgia. 19 Zeros faced 12 Corsairs. The engagement lasted 11 minutes. At 1022:00, Commander Nakamura led his formation into attack position. He had studied the Corsair tactics, understood their advantages, planned accordingly. His Zeros held altitude advantage, 23,000 feet against the Corsairs' 18,000. He would dive, fire, and break off before the Corsairs could respond. At 1022:43, Nakamura pushed into a dive, accelerating to maximum speed. His wingmen followed in disciplined formation. They opened fire at 400 yards. At 1022:51, one Corsair took hits and nosed over. At 1023:03, Nakamura broke off his attack and pulled into a climb. The Corsairs did not pursue directly. Instead, they split into 3 4-ship elements and executed a complex tactical maneuver. One element climbed to cut off the Zeros' escape route. The second element pursued at high speed. The third element engaged the Zeros head-on. At 1023:47, the head-on element opened fire. 2 Zeros exploded. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 44 seconds for the first Zero. Kill time, 44 seconds, 29 seconds for the second Zero. Kill time, 29 seconds. The Zeros broke formation, attempting to evade. At 1024:15, the pursuing element caught the climbing Zeros. At 1024:22, Ensign Hayashi was destroyed. Kill time, 7 seconds. At 1024:36, Warrant Officer Suzuki was destroyed. Kill time, 14 seconds. At 1025:03, Lieutenant Ito was destroyed. Kill time, 27 seconds. The Zeros scattered, seeking cloud cover and escape routes. The Corsairs pursued methodically, using speed and coordination. At 1025:38, Warrant Officer Tanaka was destroyed. Kill time, 35 seconds. At 1026:12, Lieutenant Sato was destroyed. Kill time, 34 seconds. At 1027:03, Ensign Fukuda was destroyed. Kill time, 51 seconds. Commander Nakamura found himself pursued by 2 Corsairs. He attempted every evasion maneuver he knew: barrel rolls, split-S vertical scissors, snap rolls. The Corsairs stayed with him, firing in coordinated bursts. At 1028:47, his aircraft took hits along the fuselage. At 1029:03, his engine seized. At 1029:11, his cockpit filled with smoke. At 1029:18, Commander Takeshi Nakamura, 17 confirmed victories, veteran of Pearl Harbor and Coral Sea, architect of tactics that had dominated American fighters for 18 months, was shot down over New Georgia. Elapsed time from engagement to death, 395 seconds. Kill time, 31 seconds from first hits to destruction. Lieutenant Yamamoto witnessed his commander's death from 3 miles away. He watched the Zero trail smoke, spin, and plunge into the jungle canopy. He counted the Corsairs as they reformed, 12 aircraft. He counted the surviving Zeros, 7 aircraft. Total engagement duration, 11 minutes, 18 seconds. Enemy aircraft destroyed, 12 Zeros. American losses, 1 Corsair damaged, pilot recovered. Kill ratio, 12-0 effective losses. The ammunition expended in this 11-minute engagement exceeded Shortland Island's monthly allocation for all air operations, including combat, training, and defensive patrols. This wasn't combat. This was systematic annihilation. The Zeros had held every tactical advantage: altitude, numbers, tactical surprise. The Corsairs had negated those advantages through speed, firepower, and coordination. The mathematics had shifted. American aircraft performance plus competent tactics equaled Japanese defeat. Lieutenant Yamamoto submitted his report with shaking hands. "The commander is dead. 12 aircraft lost. We achieved one probable. They did not just defeat us, they destroyed us. The aircraft performance allows them to control engagement parameters completely. We cannot force them to fight on our terms. They choose when to engage, when to break off, when to pursue. We cannot outrun them. We cannot outclimb them. We cannot escape them. Captain Tanaka read the report alone in his office. The mocker was dead. The officer who had dismissed the bent-wing fighter as a joke, who had laughed at American engineering, who had insisted that spirit defeated steel, he was dead. Shot down in 31 seconds by the aircraft he had mocked. The mathematics had become personal. Nakamura's 17 victories against the 0.8 seconds per victory that ended his life. The production reports arrived daily now, each more dire than the last. American Corsair production, 560 monthly. Zero production, 190 monthly. The ratio was approaching 3-to-1 for this single type. Total American fighter production, 2,300 monthly. Total Japanese fighter production, 430 monthly. Ratio, 5.3-to-1. But the numbers understated the reality. American aircraft included armor protection that Japanese fighters lacked. Self-sealing fuel tanks that prevented fires. 6.50 caliber machine guns that destroyed aircraft with single bursts. Radios that allowed coordinated tactics. The Corsair wasn't just faster. It was more durable, more lethal, more capable in every measurable dimension except turning radius. Captain Tanaka compiled a comprehensive report for headquarters. The Corsair represents a fundamental shift in air combat. Previous American fighters were inferior. We defeated them through superior performance and superior pilot skill. The Corsair negates both advantages. Its performance exceeds the zeros in speed, climb rate at high altitude, dive rate, structural strength, and firepower. Our pilot skill advantage is negated by aircraft capability. A competent pilot in a Corsair defeats an expert pilot in a Zero through performance alone. Our kill ratios confirm this assessment. Against the Corsair, we are losing at 15-to-1. Against all American fighters, we are now losing at 3-to-1. We were winning at 5-to-1 6 months ago. Headquarters requested clarification. How could American pilots improve so dramatically? Tanaka's response was precise. The pilots have not improved. The aircraft has changed. The Corsair allows average pilots to defeat expert pilots. It is not that Americans have become better. It is that their aircraft makes our skill irrelevant. Lieutenant Yamamoto, now the surviving senior pilot, trained new pilots in anti-Corsair tactics. But every tactic had limitations. Do not turn with them. They will use speed to escape and re-engage from advantage. Do not climb with them, they climb faster above 15,000 feet. Do not dive with them, they dive faster and their aircraft tolerates higher G-loads. Do not attempt to escape, they are faster in level flight. Do not engage at high altitude, they have superior performance. Do not engage at low altitude, they have superior firepower. One student pilot asked the obvious question, "Then how do we fight them, sir?" Yamamoto had no answer. "Carefully," he finally said, "and hope they make mistakes." But the Americans were making fewer mistakes. Their pilots were gaining experience. Their tactics were improving. Their aircraft were dominating. The mathematics were unambiguous. In May, Japanese pilots achieved 47 victories against all American aircraft. American pilots achieved 193 victories against Japanese aircraft. Ratio, 4-to-1 in American favor. In April, the ratio had been 2-to-1. In March, it had been approximately equal. In February, Japan had held a slight advantage. The production avalanche continued. At Stratford, Connecticut, workers assembled Corsairs with industrial precision. Each aircraft required 2.3 million rivets. The facility employed 17,000 workers across 3 shifts. They produced 14 aircraft daily. That was 1 aircraft every 103 minutes. The mathematics were industrial. 17,000 workers producing 364 aircraft monthly. That was 0.0214 aircraft per worker per month. But that single facility exceeded the entire Japanese aviation industry's output of 430 aircraft monthly across all types. Americans discarded more aluminum in a single 8-hour shift than Japan mined in a week. Daily aluminum scrap at Stratford, 8,400 pounds. Weekly Japanese aluminum mining output, all sources, 7,200 pounds. The single facility wasted more than the nation produced. Workers threw away steel stock deemed slightly warped. Japanese workers would have carefully straightened it. Daily steel waste, 5,900 pounds. Monthly steel allocation for all Japanese aircraft maintenance in the South Pacific, 4,100 pounds. Americans threw away more structural material than Japan allocated for keeping its combat aircraft flying. The cafeteria served meals that would have been luxury banquets at any Japanese military facility. Daily cafeteria consumption: 970 pounds of beef, 630 pounds of pork, 1,400 pounds of vegetables, 840 pounds of bread, 490 pounds of butter. Japanese combat pilots at Rabaul received a daily ration of rice, dried fish, pickled vegetables, and occasionally canned meat, approximately 1 pound total per person. The American factory workers ate better than Japanese pilots. Americans discarded coffee that Japanese officers would have treasured. Daily coffee waste from partially consumed cups, 83 pounds. Monthly coffee ration for all Japanese officers in the South Pacific, 14 pounds. Americans literally threw away 6 times more coffee than Japanese officers received. The waste extended to every aspect of production. Cutting tools were replaced when they dulled slightly. Japanese machinists resharpened tools until they broke. Daily cutting tool waste, 427 tools. Monthly cutting tool allocation for all Japanese aircraft maintenance, 380 tools. Americans threw away more tools than Japan distributed. Lubricating oil was used once and discarded. Japanese mechanics filtered and reused oil until it turned black. Daily lubricant waste, 640 gallons. Monthly lubricant allocation for Rabaul, 420 gallons. This single facility exceeded an entire air base's allocation. Paint was sprayed liberally, with overspray simply wasted. Japanese painters carefully brushed paint to minimize waste. Daily paint waste from overspray, 380 gallons. Monthly paint allocation for all Japanese aircraft camouflage and maintenance in the South Pacific, 290 gallons. Every aspect of American production demonstrated abundance. Workers wore disposable gloves that Japanese workers would have washed and reused for months. They used paper towels instead of cloth rags. They discarded packing materials that Japanese supply officers would have carefully saved and repurposed. The mathematics were psychological. Americans operated from abundance, Japanese from scarcity. That mindset extended to combat. American pilots knew they could be replaced, their aircraft could be replaced, their ammunition could be replenished. Japanese pilots knew each loss was irreplaceable. Captain Tanaka documented the production disparity with meticulous precision. A single American factory produces more fighters monthly than our entire nation. That factory operates in one city. America has dozens of such cities. We are not fighting a nation. We are fighting an industrial colossus that treats warfare as a manufacturing problem. They have solved that problem with assembly lines, standardization, and automation. We treat warfare as a spiritual challenge. We train warriors, they build weapons. The weapons are winning. His report reached Tokyo in July. The response was silence. The statistics were too devastating to acknowledge. A single American facility outproduced the Japanese empire. A single aircraft type the Corsair was destroying Japanese air superiority. The kill ratios told the story, 15-1 in favor of the Corsair, 3-1 across all aircraft. Japan was losing the air war through arithmetic. At Vought, the production line never stopped. Night shift, day shift, evening shift, the factory operated continuously. Workers assembled, tested, delivered. 14 aircraft daily became 420 monthly, became 5,040 annually. This single facility produced more annually than Japan's total fighter production across all factories. Approximately 5,160 aircraft annually across all types. One American factory equaled one Japanese nation. The ammunition production was equally overwhelming. At the Lake City Army Ammunition Plant in Missouri, workers produced 4.5 million rounds of .50 caliber ammunition monthly. That was one round every 0.576 seconds. Japan's entire ammunition production for aircraft, 1.2 million rounds monthly across all calibers. This single American facility produced nearly 4 times Japan's total, and the Lake City plant was one of 7 facilities producing .50 caliber ammunition. Americans discarded ammunition that failed quality control testing at rates that exceeded Japanese combat usage. Daily ammunition waste from testing, 63,000 rounds. Monthly ammunition expenditure in combat by all Japanese aircraft in the South Pacific, 54,000 rounds. Americans threw away more ammunition in quality control than Japan used in combat. The aviation fuel production was similarly disproportionate. American refineries produced 6,000 barrels of 100-octane aviation fuel daily. Japan's entire 100-octane production, 400 barrels daily. Ratio, 15-1. American fuel production exceeded Japanese production by enough to fuel every Japanese aircraft continuously at maximum power settings. The mathematics meant that fuel constraints never limited American operations, while Japanese operations were perpetually fuel-starved. Lieutenant Yamamoto witnessed this abundance firsthand during a raid on an American airfield. The raid destroyed 7 Corsairs on the ground, a successful attack. But observing the aftermath revealed the true disparity. The Americans simply rolled out 7 replacement aircraft the next day. The destroyed aircraft were bulldozed aside and forgotten. No attempt at recovery, repair, or salvage, simply discarded and replaced. That casual disposal of 7 aircraft representing millions of dollars and thousands of man-hours revealed the futility of Japanese strategy. You could not win a war of attrition against an enemy who treated aircraft losses as minor inconveniences. July 17, 1943. Battle of Kahili. 23 Zeros faced 18 Corsairs. The engagement lasted 17 minutes. It was a massacre. At 0947:00, the Zeros attempted to intercept a bomber raid. The Corsair escorts engaged immediately. At 0947:31, the first Zero exploded. Kill time 31 seconds. At 0948:03, the second Zero was destroyed. Kill time 32 seconds. At 0948:29, the third Zero was destroyed. Kill time 26 seconds. The Zeros scattered, seeking any tactical advantage. Altitude, the Corsairs climbed faster. Speed, the Corsairs were faster. Maneuverability, the Corsairs refused to turn. Firepower, 6.50 caliber machine guns destroyed Zeros with single bursts, while 0.20 cannons required sustained fire for kills. At 0949:17, the fourth Zero was destroyed. Kill time 48 seconds. At 0950:03, the fifth Zero was destroyed. Kill time 46 seconds. At 0950:44, the sixth Zero was destroyed. Kill time 41 seconds. At 0951:23, the seventh Zero was destroyed. Kill time 39 seconds. At 0952:09, the eighth Zero was destroyed. Kill time 46 seconds. Lieutenant Yamamoto dove for cloud cover, his wingman following. At 0952:47, his wingman took hits and exploded. Kill time 38 seconds. Yamamoto pulled a split-S, attempting to use his altitude to escape. A Corsair followed him through the maneuver, firing continuously. At 0953:21, Yamamoto's aircraft took hits. At 0953:34, his engine temperature spiked. At 0953:48, he saw flames along his wing route. He bilayed out at 0954:03. His aircraft exploded at 0954:07. Elapsed time from first engagement to bailout, 683 seconds. Time from first hits to bailout, 42 seconds. From his parachute, Yamamoto watched the continuation of the slaughter. Zeros fell like autumn leaves. At 0955:17, another Zero destroyed. At 0956:03, another. At 0956:49, another. At 0957:31, another. At 0958:16, another. At 0959:02, another. At 1000:08, another. At 1001:23, another. At 1002:47, the final Zero was destroyed attempting to flee. Total engagement duration, 17 minutes 47 seconds. Enemy aircraft destroyed, 23 Zeros, complete annihilation of the defending force. American losses, 2 Corsairs damaged, both pilots recovered. Kill ratio, 23-0 effective losses. The ammunition expended in this 17-minute engagement exceeded Buen's monthly allocation for all operations, including combat, training, and defensive patrols across 6 squadrons. Yamamoto was recovered by a destroyer 4 hours later. His report was brief. "They destroyed all of us, 23 aircraft. I am the only survivor. They did not just defeat us. They annihilated us. This was not combat. This was systematic execution. They were faster, better armed, better coordinated. We never achieved tactical advantage. They controlled every aspect of the engagement. We were targets, not opponents." Captain Tanaka read the report with numb acceptance. The mathematics had become absolute. In June, Japan lost 173 fighters in combat against Americans. America lost 47 fighters in combat against Japan. Ratio, 3.7-1. In July through the 17th, Japan had lost 204 fighters. America had lost 39 fighters. Ratio, 5.2 to 1. The trend was clear. American aircraft, tactics, and pilot quality were improving while Japanese forces degraded through attrition. The production reports confirmed the mathematical inevitability. American fighter production in June, 2,470 aircraft. Japanese fighter production in June, 440 aircraft. American production increased by 370 aircraft monthly. Japanese production increased by 10 aircraft monthly. At current rates, American production advantage would be 6 to 1 by September, but the raw numbers understated the crisis. Japan was losing veteran pilots, men with hundreds of combat hours, years of training, irreplaceable skill. America was training replacement pilots by the thousands. The Pensacola Naval Air Station alone graduated 600 pilots monthly. Japan's entire training pipeline produced 390 pilots monthly across all services. The mathematics were existential. America could lose pilots and replace them. Japan could not. Lieutenant Yamamoto recovered from his bailout and was assigned to training duty. His combat report had been too accurate, too devastating. Headquarters decided his experience was more valuable training new pilots than risking his loss in combat. He taught young pilots tactics that might keep them alive for a few extra missions. But he knew the truth. No tactics could overcome the fundamental disparity in aircraft performance and industrial production. Captain Tanaka continued his reports. The Americans now field 32 Corsair squadrons in the Pacific. That represents approximately 576 aircraft. Additional squadrons deploy weekly. By September, they will operate 50 squadrons, 900 aircraft. This is one aircraft type. They operate Hellcats, Lightnings, Thunderbolts, and Mustangs in addition to Corsairs. Total American fighter strength in the Pacific Theater, approximately 2,100 aircraft. Japanese fighter strength, approximately 1,140 aircraft across all types and all bases including reserves and training aircraft. The strategic situation was deteriorating. Japanese forces were being pushed back across the Pacific. Air superiority had shifted to the Americans. Every engagement resulted in disproportionate Japanese losses. The Corsair had become synonymous with defeat. Pilots called it the whistling death because of the sound the air made through its engine cowling during dives. That whistle meant you were about to die. The psychological impact was devastating. Japanese pilots who had entered the war with supreme confidence now flew with fatalistic acceptance. They knew each mission might be their last. They knew the Americans had better aircraft, better training, better logistics, and unlimited replacements. The mathematics were personal. Every sortie reduced your survival odds. Eventually, the statistics caught up with everyone. August 1943. Interrogation Center, Brisbane, Australia. Captain Kenji Tanaka sat across from American intelligence officers, his uniform clean but worn, his expression neutral. He had been shot down over Bougainville, captured, and transported to Australia for interrogation. The Americans treated him with professional courtesy, a stark contrast to Japanese treatment of prisoners. "Captain," the American colonel said, "we'd like to understand how Japanese pilots view the current tactical situation." Tanaka considered his words carefully. He had no loyalty to a command structure that had ignored his warnings, dismissed his data, and led Japan to this catastrophe. "You have won the air war," he said simply. "The numbers are absolute. Can you elaborate? We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories. Your production capacity exceeds ours by factors I cannot adequately express. A single American factory, the Vought plant in Connecticut, produces more fighters monthly than our entire nation. Your production is approximately 6 times ours across all aircraft types. This disparity makes defeat inevitable." The American officers exchanged glances. "What about the Corsair specifically?" "The Corsair changed everything," Tanaka said. "Previous American fighters were inferior to the Zero. We defeated them through superior aircraft performance and superior pilot skill. The Corsair negated both advantages. Its speed, climb rate, firepower, and structural strength exceed the Zero's capabilities in every dimension except turning radius. And because it is faster, Corsair pilots control engagement parameters. They choose when to turn. We cannot force them to turn. They win through performance superiority." "What were Japanese kill ratios against the Corsair?" "Approximately 15 to 1 in your favor," Tanaka said. "Against all American fighters, approximately 4 to 1 in your favor currently." In January 1943, we held a 3 to 1 advantage. The shift occurred over 7 months. The Corsair's introduction was the primary factor. What about tactics? We attempted every tactical response. High-altitude intercept, the Corsair climbs faster and has superior high-altitude performance. Low-altitude combat, the Corsair's speed advantage allows disengagement. Dive and zoom attacks, the Corsair dives faster and tolerates higher G-loads. Numerical superiority, the Corsair's firepower and durability allow one aircraft to engage multiple Zeros successfully. No tactic proved effective. The colonel nodded. What about Japanese production? Can you increase output? Tanaka allowed himself a bitter smile. No, we lack raw materials, manufacturing capacity, and skilled labor. Your strategic bombing has degraded our industrial base. Your submarine campaign has severed our supply lines. We cannot increase production. We can barely maintain current production, and even if we could increase production, we cannot match your industrial capacity. You produce more in a day than we produce in a week. Can you provide specific production numbers? American fighter production in July, approximately 2,400 aircraft. Japanese fighter production in July, 450 aircraft. Ratio, 5.3 to 1. But that understates the reality. Your aircraft include armor, self-sealing tanks, radios, and superior firepower. Ours do not. A Corsair weighs 9,200 pounds empty. A Zero weighs 3,600 pounds empty. You use aluminum we cannot access. You waste more materials in a day than we allocate in a month. Lieutenant Yamamoto, interrogated separately, provided similar testimony. I saw the Americans destroy my entire squadron in 17 minutes. 23 aircraft, everyone destroyed. The Americans lost 0 aircraft. This was not combat. This was systematic annihilation. The Corsair isn't just better than the Zero. It makes the Zero obsolete. An average pilot in a Corsair defeats an expert pilot in a Zero because the aircraft performance compensates for pilot skill. The war is over. We simply haven't accepted it yet. Additional testimony from captured pilots revealed the psychological devastation. We brought swords to a gunfight. Their excess capacity exceeded our maximum effort. They could lose 3 aircraft for every one of ours and still win through production. The mathematics were absolute. They produced more, flew better aircraft, and had unlimited resources. A bomber pilot captured after ditching near Rabaul provided industrial perspective. I flew supply missions from Japan to forward bases. The supplies decreased every month. Less fuel, less ammunition, less food. Meanwhile, we observed American bases. They had everything in abundance. Fuel dumps that would have supplied our entire operation for months. Ammunition stockpiles that exceeded our annual production. Aircraft parked in rows, dozens of spares. We had nothing. They had everything. The contrast was devastating. Production statistics stated by captured personnel confirmed American intelligence estimates. American fighter production, 2,400 monthly. Japanese fighter production, 450 monthly. A single American factory, we believed it was in Connecticut, produced approximately 420 fighters monthly. That single factory exceeded our entire national production across all types. The disparity wasn't close. It was absolute. They didn't just outproduce us. They buried us under an avalanche of industrial output. The testimonies painted a consistent picture. Japan had lost the industrial war completely, and the military consequences were inevitable. No amount of warrior spirit, tactical innovation, or strategic brilliance could overcome a 5-to-1 production disadvantage combined with superior aircraft performance. The mathematics were existential. An intelligence officer captured at Rabaul provided the final assessment. The Corsair proved that democratic industrial capacity defeats authoritarian military prowess. Your factories outproduced our entire nation. Your workers, including women and minorities, produced more than our dedicated military workforce. You innovated faster, adapted quicker, and scaled larger. We thought warrior spirit would defeat industrial capacity. We were wrong. The Corsair symbolizes that error. It is not just an aircraft. It is the physical manifestation of industrial democracy's superiority. November 1944. War's end approaches. The Corsair proved that democratic production, free labor, and industrial innovation could decisively defeat authoritarian military force through overwhelming material superiority. Free workers outproduced forced labor. Democratic cooperation exceeded totalitarian command. Industrial abundance buried ideological superiority under measureless tons of steel, aluminum, and ordnance. The mathematics told the story. American factories produced more aircraft in a month than Japan produced in 6 months. That disparity translated directly to combat. American pilots flew superior aircraft with unlimited fuel, unlimited ammunition, and unlimited replacements, while Japanese pilots flew obsolete aircraft with scarce fuel, rationed ammunition, and no replacement hope. March 15, 1943. Commander Takeshi Nakamura had laughed at the bent-wing fighter, dismissing it as evidence of American engineering incompetence. August 6, 1945. Japan surrendered unconditionally after nuclear annihilation and complete military collapse. The kill ratio for F-4U Corsairs in combat, 11.3 to 1. Total Corsairs produced, 12,571 aircraft. Total Corsair combat victories, 2,140 enemy aircraft destroyed. Commander Nakamura's mockery became history's most catastrophic miscalculation, measured in 2.7 million Japanese military deaths and national devastation. The lesson remains: dismissing democratic nations as weak because they prefer peace, or underestimating free people's productive capacity when mobilized for war, invites catastrophic miscalculation. The United States demonstrated that industrial democracy, when threatened, transforms civilian abundance into military avalanche. Japan learned that superior tactics and warrior spirit cannot defeat superior production and material abundance. The Corsair symbolized that lesson in steel and fire.